pagan magic, a berserker by birthright, and jumping through time? Vikings Valhalla has as much death and drama as its predecessor, but where does it go from here? The season is over, and we've got questions.
There is no going back from here, only forward.
The first season finale, The End of the Beginning, centers around the battle for Kattegat, the capital of Viking Norway. In keeping with the series' dedication to portraying real-world complexities in morality and politics, the battle is anything but simply good versus evil. Sure, fans were unlikely to root for the conniving Jarl Olaf or the borderline extremist Jarl Korra, but the issue was muddied by human sacrifice, brutal civil war, and a flurry of double and triple crosses on both sides. Just who played who, in what order, and why all have major ramifications for the surviving characters. Put simply, Harald betrayed Kattegat, then betrayed Olaf and Korra for Kattegat, but Korra had already betrayed Harald and fed him false information. Olaf betrayed them both, knowing that Harald would betray him, and he used that betrayal to weaken both Kattegat and Korra's army, thereby leaving him the strongest power when the dust settled.
By the time my army arrives, I will be the strongest Jarl left in Norway. Maybe the only one.
Or so he thought. Even when that Valknut is unraveled, many questions remain. Why did Olaf let Harald live after his double cross? Is Olaf truly the Christian fundamentalist he claims to be? Is Harald the Christian he claims to be? Both betrayed fellow Christians for pagans or pagan sympathizers. Was Korra truly blessed with second sight, implying the pagan seer was still alive? Perhaps most importantly of all, was Olaf a master manipulator or just lucky? Meanwhile, on the other side of the North Sea, The End of the Beginning follows another power struggle, the battle for the throne of England. Though compared to Kattegat, this battle was fought more with machinations and masses of troops. The fight was no less treacherous and no less significant. The principal players were the interim Viking king Forkbeard, the Viking queen Ælfgifu, the Norman queen Emma, and the royal advisor Godwin. If the Harald/Olaf/Korra knot was convoluted, then the competition in London was the world's biggest ball of twine. Just as in Kattegat, the exact level of each player's duplicity will presumably have a major bearing on the series' future.
You were part of this.
Indeed I was.
It's clear that Forkbeard, Emma, and Godwin all conspired to remove the troublesome Ælfgifu from the picture, but just how far they were in league with each other matters. One of the key moments that began the conspiracy was Godwin's killing of Edmund, Emma's stepson and heir to the English throne. As Emma seemed to care for Edmund, it's difficult to imagine she was in on that particular part of the plot. The scheme also took Forkbeard away from the throne and back to Norway, conveniently leaving only Emma in England and with a claim to the throne. Could it be that Emma and Godwin conspired behind Forkbeard's back?
It will be up to us to make this work.
Us.
And for Godwin, the newly appointed Earl of Wessex, could he be setting his sights on an even higher position? Historically, the biggest Viking settlements outside of their native Norway, Sweden, and Denmark were in Iceland, Greenland, the British Isles, and Normandy, France. At the end of the first season of Vikings Valhalla, essentially every one of those territories is in a state of political flux and faces a number of questions about its future, aside from Iceland, which seems to be doing just fine. England is left in Emma's hands. Though she is married via Christianity to the newly crowned King Canute, he is also married, via pagan tradition, to Danish Queen Ælfgifu. Emma, being Norman, is neither true Viking nor true Saxon, and so her hold on England is tenuous. Canute is away in his native Denmark to repel a Rus invasion from the east, meaning Denmark is likely in the hands of a temporary ruler, probably a Jarl. Norway was just ravaged by civil war, much of its population lost. Kattegat has fallen, and now Forkbeard has sailed into the city to take it, meaning Norway will likely have 3 different kings in the span of a day. Greenland, too, faces an uncertain future. Though it's only mentioned in the series, it's clear that Greenland's leadership has always been questionable, especially now that Leif Erikson has left. Though Emma's claim to the English throne is both tenuous and challenged, at the end of Season 1, she nonetheless has the highest combined score when it comes to both rightful claim and actually being in England. For the moment, she has an unparalleled amount of authority to enact her will. Depending on her level of involvement in Edmund's death, the first item on her docket will most likely be avenging her beloved stepson. The clever and ever-perceptive Emma noticed the small stab wound on Edmund's body and immediately accused Godwin of her stepson's murder.
Strange things happen in these types of accidents, Your Highness.
Strange. I would call it miraculous.
Assuming she was not involved in this plot, she clearly has her primary suspect. Will Emma have Godwin killed as revenge? And, as is always the issue in this tale of honor, responsibility, and competing allegiances, can she kill him? Godwin is, after all, the new Earl of Wessex, and a trusted advisor to Forkbeard. Would Forkbeard kill Emma in retribution? And might Emma's practicality convince her to keep the clever, Littlefinger-esque Godwin alive in her own employ? Godwin isn't the only conspirator who may soon find themselves on Emma's chopping block. The same is true for Ælfgifu. But despite Emma's momentarily having the upper hand over Ælfgifu, both women are in equally precarious positions. While King Canute is away in Denmark, Emma can never be sure where his love truly lies. Further, she can't forget that her marriage was a rushed one, and one performed for political gain. Ælfgifu has 2 sons, and both are with Canute. Ælfgifu may be in jeopardy, but so is Emma. Killing the mother of Canute's sons and Forkbeard's grandsons might just invite even worse than a guild of thieves into her home. Olaf managed to persist throughout the entire season through some mixture of wiles and luck. In the final moments of the season finale, however, Olaf is finally left in a position that threatens to use up all of his remaining luck, and his wiles alone may not be enough to save him. About a minute after taking Kattegat and proclaiming himself the new King of Norway, Olaf receives the news that Forkbeard's fleet has sailed into the harbor.
It's not possible. No!
For Olaf, the Jarl who betrayed Forkbeard's son King Canute, the fleet likely means death. In his last moments on screen, Olaf throws off his regal cloak and runs off into Kattegat. Is he about to die a warrior's death in combat, or will he be able to flee to safety? Is there any such place in a country full of his enemies? During the sacking of Kattegat, Freydis and Harald escape the city on horseback, riding into the mountains of untamed Norway. Like Olaf, they face the question of where to go. For Olaf, the issue is the infamy gained during his and Korra's conquest of Norway and the extermination of its pagan populace. For Freydis and Harald, the issue is the opposite. Most of their allied cities and settlements have been conquered. While Harald is a Christian, he has made it clear that Freydis is more important to him than his faith, and so even if he could find sanctuary in Christian Norway, he wouldn't without his beloved. On top of that, Freydis is more pagan than ever, having embraced her prophesized role as the last daughter of Uppsala.
Yes. The last.
With none of her fellow Greenlanders left alive save for a bloody berserk Leif, and with Norway heavily Christianized, Freydis will have a hard time finding safety anywhere close to Kattegat. Creator Jeb Stewart did tease that Harald and whoever will still follow him have a long journey in store, telling Looper, "We're going to take them out of Scandinavia." Where they might end up is anyone's guess.
As the sword is carried by the cross, much blood, pouring like fountains.
Throughout its first season, Vikings Valhalla was deliberately vague in its portrayal of supernatural phenomena. At times, the visions seen by people like Freydis and Korra seem almost factual, while at other times it seems obvious that any perceived otherworldliness was simply the product of zealousness and hallucinogens, a well-documented historical tradition. But as Freydis' story progresses, it may become harder to remain ambiguous. One of the most momentous occurrences in Freydis' life is her vision of the seer, the prophet who played a major role almost 200 years earlier. For her to have seen the seer as he actually appeared in Vikings would either take an astounding coincidence or the legitimate existence of magic. Even during the events of Vikings, the seer was allegedly centuries old, and his appearance, though possibly explainable by natural causes, appeared truly inhuman. If Freydis is indeed the last sacred pagan champion in an increasingly Christian Northern Europe, where will Vikings Valhalla decide to land on its own issue of magic realism? Whether or not the crew behind Vikings Valhalla ever takes a stand on the reality of magic in their world, the battle between competing religions is very real and a large part of the show's setting. The tension between Christian Vikings and pagan Vikings is felt in every episode. Few of the show's characters are able to avoid choosing a side in the conflict, though series protagonist Leif is seemingly able to do so. For almost the entirety of 8 episodes, Leif performs his stone-faced outsider act for anyone who broaches the subject of the gods, and only drops the charade in the last moments of the season finale. As his lover Liv dies in his arms, she asks Leif if he believes in the old gods as she does. Though he hesitates, he eventually caves and reassures her, just moments too late, that yes, he follows traditional Norse paganism.
No, Liv! No, Liv, I'll join you. I'll join you, I promise.
Thanks to a number of clues throughout the series, however, it's possible that Leif may actually be embracing Christianity. Leif's infamous father, Eric the Red, became a legend throughout the entire Viking world due to his berserker nature. He was a killer through and through, whether in wartime or peace, and his unhinged, bloody melees are what earned him the name the Red. Leif, an apple from that red tree, is always forced to wonder how far from it he fell, or how close he remains. Leif spends the majority of the season maintaining his cool, killing minimally and keeping his temper in check. It's not until Liv's death that the berserker inside him is truly unleashed. His whirlwind of axes certainly harkens back to tales of Eric the Red, but the truth may be more complex. While the savage fury in which Leif ends the season may simply be a relatively justified reaction to the death of his partner, it remains to be seen how red Leif really is. It is likely that Season 2 of Vikings Valhalla will take place either directly after or soon after the end of the first season, but it is far from a given. Showrunners jumped almost 200 years between the end of Vikings and the start of Vikings Valhalla, showing their willingness to skip through history to get to its meatiest parts. On top of that, the latter half of the season introduced the children and grandchildren of some of the show's main characters. Will Season 2 of Vikings Valhalla shift like the start of Season 1, from our main characters to their children? Given the amounts of story left to be told for Leif, Freydis and Harald, it's unlikely, but a future season could certainly chronicle the children's crusade, perhaps somewhat literally, given the increasing percentage of Vikings who believe in Christ. Ultimately, the when, where, who, and how of future Vikings Valhalla seasons are all up in the air, though the air is sure to be thick with smoke and the screams of Viking raiders. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.